Historic expedition in the Amazon rainforest.
Fascinating pieces of evidence about these channels and pathways that they've found in the Amazon.
Archaeologists working deep in the Amazon rainforest have discovered an extensive network of cities dating back over 2,000 years.
A time capsule lost for 12,000 years, and the truth inside challenges everything we were taught. For centuries, we've been told the Amazon was untouched by advanced civilization, just scattered tribes, simple hunters and gatherers, living lightly on the land. That story is now shattered. Deep in one of the most remote reaches of the rainforest.
Imagine getting lost here. Yeah, somewhere there, below the canopy of the largest rainforest on Earth. This is the Amazon.
Where the jungle swallows everything, explorers have uncovered a sealed chamber hidden for over 12,000 years. Inside, they found what should be impossible: the colossal bones of Ice Age giants forming cathedral-like vaults, extinct seeds still alive, and a network of engineering that defies every textbook about human development.
Mysterious monumental architecture.
This has changed our perception of ancient Amazonian societies.
Painted on the walls is a star map, a record of a cosmic catastrophe, and a warning preserved for millennia. If humans were barely surviving in this era, how could they have built something so sophisticated?
The paintings are like a distant diary, depicting the lives these early Amazonians lived.
What knowledge did they possess that we have forgotten? And why was it buried so carefully, only to resurface now? This is not a myth, and it is not speculation. What you are about to see challenges the very foundation of history and forces us to ask a question we were never meant to consider. Is human civilization far older and far more advanced than we have ever been told? The Invisible City. The Amazon rainforest is roughly the size of the entire continental United States.
The Amazon is the world's largest tropical rainforest. It spreads over 9 Latin American countries.
Let that scale settle into your mind for a moment. An area so vast that you could fit most of Western Europe inside it and still have room left over. It contains more biodiversity than any other ecosystem on the planet. More species of plants, insects, birds, and mammals than scientists have been able to catalog even after centuries of study. Rivers wider than highways wind through it, some of them carrying more water than any other river system on Earth.
The Atlantic flows the iconic Amazon River, depended upon by 40 million people.
Trees grow so tall and so densely packed that the forest floor exists in permanent twilight, a shadowy world where sunlight rarely penetrates and where the rules of exploration that work everywhere else simply do not apply. And despite all our satellites circling the planet, despite all our drones and aircraft and modern surveying technology, we have mapped less of the Amazon floor than we have of the surface of the moon. Think about that. We know more about the geography of a dead rock 250,000 miles away than we do about the ground beneath one of the largest forests on our own planet. The Amazon remains the last great blind spot on Earth, a place where secrets can hide for millennia without ever being discovered, where entire civilizations could rise and fall and leave no trace that our current methods would detect. For over a century, explorers have vanished, trying to find lost cities in this green labyrinth. The most famous was Percy Fawcett, a British explorer who disappeared in 1925 while searching for a city he called Z, convinced that an advanced civilization had once flourished in the Brazilian interior. He was never seen again. Dozens of others followed him into the jungle and met similar fates, swallowed by a landscape that seemed determined to keep its secrets. The problem is not just the danger. The problem is the jungle itself. The Amazon grows so fast that it can swallow a stone temple in just a few decades. Vines crawl over walls with relentless patience. Roots crack foundations and push through floors. Trees sprout in courtyards and grow until their canopy covers everything below. Within a single generation, a thriving settlement can become indistinguishable from the surrounding wilderness, invisible to anyone walking past it, invisible even to aircraft flying overhead. This is why so many archaeologists dismissed the legends of great Amazonian civilizations as fantasy and wishful thinking. If such cities existed, they argued, we would have found them by now. The technology would have revealed them. The surveys would have detected them. But they were looking with the wrong tools. Lidar changed everything.
Lidar works in a similar way to radar. It scans the ground by sending out 1 million laser points every 4 seconds and analyzing the information.
Think of Lidar as sonar for light. An aircraft flies over the forest canopy and fires billions of laser pulses toward the ground below. Most of those pulses hit leaves and branches and bounce back immediately. But some slip through the gaps in the foliage and travel all the way down to the forest floor before returning. A computer collects all this data and then does something remarkable. It removes all the vegetation from the image, stripping away every tree and vine and leaf, and suddenly you can see the ground as if the forest simply was not there. Mountains appear that no one knew existed. Valleys emerge from what looked like flat terrain. And in places where the textbooks said nothing had ever been built, straight lines begin to reveal themselves. Nature does not make straight lines. Rivers curve, hills slope. Erosion creates organic shapes that flow and blend into each other. When you see perfect geometry hidden beneath jungle canopy, when you see lines running parallel for miles with precise right angles at the corners, you are not looking at geology. You are looking at the fingerprints of human engineering. In 2019, Dr. Ella Al-Shamahi led a Lidar survey over a remote border zone between Brazil and Colombia. This area was supposed to be empty wilderness, untouched by human development, inhabited only by scattered indigenous communities living exactly as their ancestors had lived for thousands of years. No roads led there. No settlements appeared on any map.
Archaeologists have discovered a huge ancient city hidden underground.
It was as close to terra incognita as anything left on Earth. But when the data came back from the processing laboratory, the research team fell into stunned silence. The screen did not show the random hills and natural drainage patterns they expected. It showed roads running in perfectly straight lines for miles through the jungle. It showed raised platforms arranged in rows. It showed rectangular plazas laid out in geometric grids that could only have been created by deliberate planning and coordinated construction. The mapped area covered 30 square miles of engineered landscape hidden beneath the trees. 30 square miles. To support a settlement that size, you need massive agricultural systems capable of feeding thousands of people. You need organized labor capable of moving earth and stone. You need centralized governance capable of coordinating complex projects across years or decades. You need engineering expertise that the mainstream timeline says should not have existed in this region at this time. The discovery shattered the accepted narrative before anyone even set foot on the ground. And the city was only the beginning. The sealed door. But the hidden city was not the most disturbing thing the Lidar revealed. At the center of the survey area, right at the base of a limestone ridge, the laser data showed something that made no geological sense.
A pair of archaeologists believe they found a lost city in the Amazon. New technology has unearthed the remains of an ancient civilization.
A perfect oval shape embedded in the rock face. It was not a sinkhole. It was not a natural cave opening. The density readings indicated that this section of the cliff was different from everything around it. It looked like a massive door that had been fused shut. The rock surface showed a chemical signature, suggesting it had been heated to extreme temperatures at some point in the distant past. It was as if someone or something had melted the stone itself to seal whatever lay behind it. Dr. Ella understood immediately that this was not just a settlement. It was a fortress. And that sealed door was protecting something the builders considered worth hiding from the world. Reaching it would require weeks of travel through some of the most difficult terrain on Earth, hundreds of miles from the nearest road, through a region known for violent storms, venomous wildlife, and jungle so dense that progress is measured in yards per hour rather than miles per day. The team organized an expedition, knowing they might be walking toward the discovery of a lifetime. They had no idea. They were walking toward a revelation that would force humanity to rewrite its own history. The journey took weeks. They hacked through vegetation that seemed to regenerate behind them as fast as they could cut it. They crossed rivers swollen with rain and camped in humidity so thick the air felt like warm water. When they finally reached the base of the limestone ridge, they did not find the sealed door immediately. They found something else. As they cleared moss and vines from the cliff face, one of the team members shouted that the rock underneath was not gray. It was red. They had stumbled upon a mural painted directly onto the stone, stretching nearly 100 feet across the cliff face in colors that had somehow survived millennia of tropical exposure. This was not a few primitive handprints or simple stick figures. This was a masterwork of ancient art, detailed and sophisticated, depicting scenes that should not have been possible to witness.
Who were these ancient artists and builders? Finally, archaeologists are revealing the untold story of the ancient builders of the Amazon.
The mural of extinction. The paintings on the cliff did not show jaguars or monkeys or any of the animals that inhabit the modern Amazon. They showed creatures that have been extinct for 12,000 years. There were mastodons, massive relatives of elephants that vanished at the end of the last ice age. There were giant ground sloths, and when scientists say giant, they mean animals the size of minivans that stood 12 feet tall on their hind legs with claws as long as human forearms. These were megafauna that no human being alive today has ever seen outside of museum reconstructions. The fact that they were painted on this wall with such accuracy, capturing details of their movement and posture that could only come from direct observation, meant one inescapable thing. The artists who created this mural saw these animals alive. They walked among them. They watched them move through this very landscape. This dated the artwork to at least 12,600 years ago, thousands of years older than any sophisticated civilization was supposed to exist anywhere in the Americas. But the dating was not the only impossible detail. When the team analyzed the pigments used in the paintings, they discovered that the red ochre did not come from local soil. The chemical signature matched mineral deposits found over 400 miles away, across mountain ranges and river systems that would have presented enormous logistical challenges even with modern transportation. 12,000 years ago, during the chaos of the Ice Age's end, these people were not merely surviving day to day. They were traveling vast distances, trading specialized materials, and transporting artistic supplies across half a continent. That requires organization, planning, and infrastructure that rivals anything we attribute to ancient Egypt or Mesopotamia. It happened in the middle of the wild Amazon at a time when humans were supposedly hitting rocks together in caves. Dr. Ella noticed something deeply disturbing about the murals: composition. The animals were not standing peacefully or grazing calmly. They were running. Every creature depicted was shown in a state of panic, fleeing from a specific direction as if something terrible was pursuing them. And in the middle of this chaos, there was a human figure standing beneath a strange symbol. It looked like a circle with jagged lines radiating from it, a ring of fire hanging in the sky. Next to the figure were dots arranged in a precise pattern that seemed too deliberate to be decorative. An astronomer on the team examined the pattern and realized it was not random. It was a star map. But the constellations were not in the positions we see today. They matched the night sky exactly as it would have appeared 10 to 800 years before the Common Era. This was the end of the Younger Dryas period, a time when Earth experienced a sudden, violent climate shift. Temperatures plummeted, then spiked. Ice caps melted catastrophically. Oceans rose and swallowed coastlines. The mural was a record of that disaster. The people who painted it were not simply creating art. They were leaving a warning for whoever came after them, and the path of fleeing animals led directly toward the sealed oval door that the Lidar had spotted. Breaking the seal. The team followed the base of the cliff until they found it. The sealed door was a section of rock smoother than everything around it, covered in a pale mineral glaze that geologists identified as calcite. It looked like flowstone, but significantly harder, as if the natural mineral had been somehow reinforced or engineered. And here is where the situation became genuinely unsettling. As they approached the seal, their electronic equipment began malfunctioning. Compass needles started spinning erratically, pointing toward the sealed door as if drawn by an invisible force. Compasses spin like that when they encounter massive amounts of magnetic material or metal. But this was a limestone ridge. Limestone is not magnetic. There should have been nothing here to cause that reaction. Something behind that door was producing a magnetic field strong enough to interfere with navigation equipment from several feet away. The team set up vibration scanners to find a weak point in the calcite wall. The readings confirmed what the Lidar had suggested. The rock was not solid all the way through. Behind the seal was a hollow space, and not a small one. The void extended deep into the ridge, a massive chamber that had been cut off from the outside world for millennia. Dr. Ella gave the order to drill. They used diamond-tipped bits, expecting to punch through the mineral seal within an hour. It took 3 days. The calcite was incredibly dense, reinforced with something that dulled the cutting tools far faster than natural stone should have. Whatever the ancient builders used to seal this door, they intended it to stay sealed. Finally, the drill broke through. And then something happened that sent chills through everyone present. A hiss. Pressurized air rushed out of the hole with enough force to stir the dust around the entry point. This phenomenon occurs sometimes in sealed tombs when the interior atmosphere has been preserved at different pressure than the outside world. But this air was different. It did not smell like rot or decay or the mustiness of enclosed spaces. It smelled metallic, like ozone and wet iron. It was the smell of a thunderstorm trapped in stone for 12,000 years. The team widened the hole until it was large enough to squeeze through. Dr. Ella went first, dropping into darkness with only her headlamp cutting through the ancient dust. The first thing she noticed stopped her cold. The floor beneath her feet was not rough cave floor, covered in rock debris and mineral deposits. It was paved. Inside a sealed chamber from the Ice Age, there was a smooth, deliberately leveled floor. And the material beneath her boots was not stone. It was terra preta, the legendary black earth of the Amazon, a man-made super soil engineered to be hyper-fertile and self-sustaining. We still do not fully understand how ancient people created it. Finding it here meant this was not a natural cave formation. It was an engineered space, built with intention and sophistication that defied everything we thought we knew about this era. The Cathedral of Bones. As the rest of the team dropped into the chamber, the true scale of the space became apparent. The ceiling arched 30 feet above their heads. The walls were reinforced with pillars of basalt, a hard volcanic rock that does not occur naturally in this region. It had to be transported from deposits miles away, hauled through jungle terrain without wheels or beasts of burden, and set in place to support the weight of the mountain above. This was architectural engineering of the highest order, built to last through whatever catastrophe the builders knew was coming. The team walked deeper, following the paved path, into the heart of the ridge. The air was heavy and utterly still. There were no bats, no insects, no signs of any life that had penetrated the seal in all the millennia since it was closed. The only sound was their boots on the ancient soil. Then the passage opened into a central chamber, and what they saw there made everything else they had found seem ordinary by comparison. Lining the walls were bones, massive bones, arranged not in piles like a graveyard, but in deliberate architectural patterns. Curved ribs over 6 feet long were set into the floor in perfect arcs, creating a tunnel of skeletal structure that resembled the vaulted ceiling of a Gothic cathedral. These were the ribs of the mastodons depicted on the mural outside. The builders had hunted these Ice Age giants, stripped the flesh from their bones, and used their skeletal remains to construct a sacred space inside the sealed mountain. The effort required to accomplish this is almost incomprehensible. Each of those bones weighed hundreds of pounds. Dragging them into a cave system, positioning them with precision, and setting them into the floor as structural elements would have required coordinated labor, engineering knowledge, and a level of cultural organization that simply should not have existed at this time, and yet here it was. A bone cathedral built 12,000 years ago by people history says were primitive hunter-gatherers with no permanent settlements and no complex social structures. At the center of the chamber was a circular depression filled with a liquid so dark and still that it looked like a black mirror. When Dr. Ella shined her light on it, the reflection seemed wrong somehow. The liquid was thick, viscous, and perfectly motionless. It was not water. The Ark. The team approached the black pool with extreme caution. In the Amazon, standing water usually means parasites, bacteria, and diseases that can kill within days. They extracted a sample, expecting contamination. Instead, the field tests revealed something astonishing. The liquid was sterile. It was not oil, and it was not muddy water. It was water heavily saturated with metallic isotopes and charcoal, creating a preservation medium unlike anything they had encountered before. It functioned almost like a liquid time capsule, preventing decay through chemistry that the ancient builders somehow understood well enough to engineer. And floating in that dense black liquid were seeds, not fossilized remnants, not mineralized impressions of organic material. Preserved seeds that initial analysis suggested might still be viable after more than 10,000 years. The botanist on the team nearly collapsed when she realized what she was looking at. These were seeds from plant species that went extinct at the end of the Ice Age, species of palms and medicinal plants that do not exist in the modern Amazon, species that were lost when the Younger Dryas catastrophe reshaped the climate of the entire planet. The cave was not a tomb for human remains. It was an ark. The builders saw the disaster coming. They witnessed the fire in the sky depicted on the mural outside. They understood that the plants sustaining their world were about to die. So they constructed a bunker, engineered a sterile preservation environment using the black liquid and the terra preta soil, and stored the seeds of their entire ecosystem to be replanted when the catastrophe passed. Along the walls of the chamber, the team found ceramic jars sealed with wax. Inside were more seeds, dried tubers, and what appeared to be genetic samples from the era's most important crops. This was a doomsday vault, conceptually identical to the one humanity built in Svalbard, Norway in 2008.
250 kilometers from the Norwegian coast, dozens of huge rigs like this stand sentinel in the North Sea, tapping into the trillion-dollar business that is oil and gas.
But constructed 12,000 years ago by a civilization that official history says never existed. The implications are staggering. These ancient people understood biology well enough to know which plants were essential. They understood chemistry well enough to create a preservation medium that could function for millennia. They understood engineering well enough to build a sealed chamber that could survive earthquakes, floods, and the passage of ages. And they understood long-term planning well enough to think not in terms of their own lifetimes, but in terms of centuries, building a vault for descendants they would never meet. They were not surviving day to day. They were thinking about the future of their entire civilization. So the chamber has been opened, the seeds preserved for 12,000 years have been uncovered, and the warning etched into stone has finally been read. Yet the builders remain absent, their tools left as a silent signature. and the obsidian that crossed continents hints at knowledge and networks that defy everything we thought we knew about Ice Age humans. If one chamber can rewrite what we understand about civilization, what else is hidden beneath the Amazon? Canopy, waiting for the right moment or the right technology to be revealed. How many messages from lost cultures still lie buried, silent witnesses to worlds erased by fire, ice, and catastrophe? The past is far deeper, stranger, and more fragile than history books admit. And this discovery is only the beginning. The question now is not just what happened 12,000 years ago, but how much of it still shapes the world we live in today.